Hello and very warm welcome to all of you. I am Dr. Ruhi Lal, Senior Academician, Amity School of Communication, Amity University, Noida. I have total 23 years of experience, blend of industry and academics. My core specialization is advertising, marketing, brand management. I have worked in various advertising agencies. I have worked in Noida Ad Agency, Purple Focus and Hindustan Times. I am teaching at Amity University from last 15 years, and in this lecture we will explain the basic concepts and principles of advertising. So we will talk about the basic theory and practices of advertising which will be discussed. So after completion of this session, the students will be able to understand the foundation of advertising industry. So let's start by discussing the objectives of this lecture. The objective of this lecture are to understand meaning, nature and feature of advertising, to gain the deep understanding and knowledge on objectives of advertising, importance of advertising, evolution of advertising. There are many tools available for the marketers to use the purpose of promoting a product or a service as promotional mix. So in this lecture, we'll explore advertising as a method of promotional communication in order for any business to succeed. A company or individual will generally need to promote product or services to the same group of buyer that competitors are targeting. So even if anyone owns a small or one-of-kind business, he or she will still need to inform the audience about the product or services, to create awareness, to educate the target buyers that the business exists and need persuasion to sell their product and services. Therefore, every marketers or the owner of the business need to use one or more methods of promotional communication in order to stay in the market, to get their sales, to compete with the competitor and neutralize the competition. They need to stay in the business. So in this lecture, we will be talking about some subtopics which we are going to discuss. So we'll elaborate the subject and we'll make the better understanding of advertising. So we'll talk about what is advertising, we'll talk about definition, concepts of advertising, history of advertising. So let's start with the introduction of advertising. So advertising is a psychological process. It is a form of communication paid by companies or individuals to persuade people to think or act in a particular way. In layman's language, if we will try to understand, advertising is one of the most visible elements in providing information about the products, services and idea. According to research study, every day each individual exposed to more than 3,000 advertisements through different medium such as newspaper, outdoor, radio, online, television or other media. The high advertising exposure make an impact in the mind of the customer to build an image about the product and services. Advertising is not new. It is centuries old practice of ancient Greek and Rome. With time, the form, type and technique have changed. The advertising aim to inform people, educate people, persuade people about the product, service or idea. It helps in making consumer aware about the product features, attributes, specification and most innovative idea. When a customer goes to buy a product in the market, we decide upon the branding, quality and product feature. Here, advertising play a vital role to sell a product. If a product is advertised properly, it helps a lot the target audience to take the purchase decision. Advertising is large and highly competitive industry, occupying a very important position in most developing and developed economies. If we will talk about the most fundamental definition of advertising, the most basic, simplest and broadest way to define it can be its Latin origin adverter, which means to turn the mind towards or to draw attention to. Simply put, something that is done purposely to attract or catch attention through different medium like print, electronic, radio. So advertising is a form of mass communication and expected to create a brand image and build brands. So it is a tool of marketing to reach the masses. Advertising has to buy space and time in one or more media of mass communication, such as in television, newspaper, in magazine. So advertising, which can be defined very simply in one line as it is a form of mass communication, we can say that it is a powerful marketing tool. It is also a component of economic system. It is source of revenue generation. It is a social responsibility also. It is an art form. It is an instrument of business management. It is a field of employment. It is a profession. It is a public announcement also. It is form of persuasive communication. So above all, if we will define advertising, it is multidimensional. It is big business. Definition of advertising, according to American Marketing Association, advertising is any paid form of non-personal presentation and promotion of idea, goods and services by an identified sponsor. The definition given by American Marketing Association is the most accepted definition of advertising, where advertising is described as a paid form of communication. The marketers are paying the agency and media for the creative idea to communicate to the target audience. The term presentation in the definition is considered as an offering to the consumer. The identified sponsors are the companies which are buying time and space in the media and promoting their brands. So advertising is an important element of the marketing communication mix. Advertising directs a message at a large number of people with a single communication. It is a mass medium. The Institute of Practitioner in Advertising defines advertising as advertising presents the most persuasive possible selling message to the right prospects for the product and service at a lowest cost. American Marketing Association defines advertising in 1948 as advertising is paid form of non-personal presentation of idea, goods, services by an identified sponsor. In 1988, Dorothy Cohen defined advertising as advertising is business activity employing creative techniques to design persuasive communication in mass media that provide idea, goods and services in a manner consistent with the achievement of the advertiser's objective, the delivery of consumer satisfaction and the development of social and economic welfare. So, in the above definition of advertising given by Dorothy Cohen discussed about the creative technique used in advertising. Dorothy Cohen was not very much convinced with the definition of AMA, as the creative concept was not elaborated in the definition. And so the author also discussed the advertiser's objective and consumer satisfaction in her definition, which she felt was left untouched in the definition given by American Marketing Association. Some more advertising definitions are discussed here. The definition, which is given by William J. Stanton, defined advertising as advertising consists of all the activities involved in presenting to an audience a non-personal, sponsor identified, paid for message about a product or the organization. So the meaning of definition is mentioned as for the better understanding of the definition. So Stanton discussed advertising in a similar way as explained by American Marketing Association. He also discussed the non-personal aspect of the advertising with the paid communication and the identified sponsor. So another definition of advertising is by Webster as mentioned. According to Webster, advertising is to give public notice or to announce publicly. Gardner expressed his understanding of advertising as advertising is the means of mass selling that has grown up parallel with and has been made necessary to mass production. The meaning of the definition by Webster is advertising is to understand the public notice, because advertising is for the notice of public about any product. So about the product feature, product attribute and product uniqueness. If the advertiser makes any changes in the product or introduces a new product in the market, brings about a change in the product strategy, the positioning strategy or the promotional strategy, he or she brings it into the notice of public with the help of advertising, and so advertising is a public notice. Webster discussed advertising in the simplest way as public notice or announce publicly, whereas Gardner expressed advertising in terms of selling. The ultimate aim of advertising is to sell a product. So the advertising objective is to achieve the marketing objective. Marketers through advertising companies communicate about their product feature, product quality and product availability. So Gardner also talked about the concept of mass production. Advertising is bringing a product or service to the attention of potential and current customers. So advertising is focused on one particular product or service. Thus, an advertising plan for one product might be very different than for the another product. Advertising is typically done with signs, brochures, commercial, direct mailing or email messages, personal contact, nowadays with the help of social media. So advertising is a process of delivering a message about ideas, goods and services through the media paid by the identified sponsor. The structured and composed non-personal communication of information, usually persuasive in nature, about products, goods or services or ideas by identified sponsor through various media. So let us discuss advertising in detail. And now advertising is a form of communication used to encourage or persuade audiences, viewers, readers, listeners, sometimes a specific group of people to continue to take some new action. Most commonly, the desired result is to drive consumer behavior with respect to commercials offering, although political and ideological advertising is also in common. So purpose of advertising may also be to reassure employees or stakeholders that a company is viable or successful. So advertising messages are usually paid for by the sponsors and viewed via various traditional media, including the mass media such as the newspaper, magazine, television commercial, radio advertising, outdoor advertising or direct mail, or new media such as blogs, websites, social networking sites, text messages. So all these are the medium. Commercial advertisers often seek to generate increased consumption of their product or services through branding, which involves the repetition of an image or product name, is an effort to associate certain qualities with the brand in the mind of the consumer. Non-commercial advertisers who spend money to advertise items other than consumer product or services include the political parties, interest groups, religious organizations and governmental agencies, non-profit organizations may rely on free modes of persuasion such as public service announcement, which is very commonly known as PSA. So PSA is a non-personal form of promotion that is delivered through selected media outlet that under most circumstances require the market to pay for the message placement. So advertising has long been viewed as a method of mass promotion in that single message can reach a large number of people. But in mass promotion approach presents problems since many exposed to advertising message may not be within the market's target market and thus may be an insufficient use of promotional funds. However, this is changing as new advertising technologies and the emergence of new media outlets offer more options for targeted advertising. Advertising also has a history of being considered a one-way form of marketing communication, where the message receivers, that is the target market, is not in a position to immediately respond to the message, seek more information. This too is changing nowadays with the emergence of social media. In the next few years, technology will be readily available to enable a television viewers to click a button to request more detail on a product seen on their favorite TV program. In fact, it is expected that over next 10-20 years of advertising will move away from one-way communication model and it will become one that is highly interactive. Another characteristic that may change as advertising evolves in the view that advertising does not stimulate immediate demand for the product advertised. That is, customers cannot quickly purchase a product they see advertised. But as more media outlets allow customers to interact with the messages being delivered, the ability of advertising to quickly stimulate demand will improve. So let's discuss the benefits of advertising. Advertising has number of benefits for the advertiser. The advertiser has control over the message. The advert and its message to an extent would be designed to the specification of the advertiser. So the advertiser can focus its message at a huge number of potential customers in a single hit at a relatively low cost per head. Advertising is quick relative to other elements of the marketing communication mix. For example, personal selling, where an entire sales force would need to be briefed or even recruited. Therefore, an advertiser has the opportunity to communicate with all its target audience simultaneously. There are numbers of benefits of advertising: to increase their sales, to increase their profit, prepare ground for new product, information about the product, stimulating demand and maintaining demand by facing competition and neutralizing competition, and creating goodwill, enhancing their goodwill, to expand market, for reminding the customers, for seeking staff, to attract investors, to inform people about the changes in the product features. There are two key categories of advertising, namely above the line and below the line. The definition owes a lot to the historical development of advertising agencies and how they charge for their services. So, in a nutshell, above the line is any work done involving media where a commission is taken by an advertising agency, and below the line is work done for a client where the standard charge replaces commission. So, TV advertising is above the line since an advertising agency would book commercial time on behalf of the client, but placing an advert in a series of local newspaper is below the line, because newspapers tend to apply their own costing approach where no commission is taken by the agency. Instead, the agency charges the client a transparent fee. Let's discuss importance of advertising. Spending on advertising is huge. One often quoted statistics by market research firm Zenith Optimedia, which estimates that worldwide spending on advertising exceeds $400 billion. This level of spending supports thousands of companies and millions of jobs. In fact, in many countries, most media outlets such as television, radio and newspaper would not be in business without revenue generated through the sale of advertising. While worldwide advertising is an important contributor to economic growth, individual marketing organizations differ on the role advertising plays. For some organizations, little advertising may be done. Instead, promotional money is spent on other promotional options such as personal selling through a sales team. For some smaller companies, advertising may consist of occasional advertising or on a very small scale, such as placing small ads in the classified section of the local newspaper. But most organizations, large and small, they rely on marketing to create customer interest, are engaged in consistent use of advertising to help meet marketing objectives. This includes regularly developing advertising campaigns which involve a series of decisions for the planning, creating, delivering and evaluating an advertising effort. Now let's talk about the concept of advertisements. So we are exposed to variety of advertisement day in and day out. We see advertisement in newspapers, in hoardings, we listen to radio advertisements, we also watch a host of advertisements in the television. There is also variety of advertisement in the World Wide Web and in the social networking site. Here we will discuss the concept, objectives and functions of advertising. Advertising has become an integral part of today's marketing scenario. In earlier times, advertisement was not much given emphasis as it is being given today. The Institute of Practitioner in Advertising defines the term as advertising presents the most persuasive possible selling message to the right prospects for the product or service at the lowest possible cost. Here we have a combination of creativity, marketing research and economic media buying. Advertising may cost a lot of money, but that cost is justified if it works effectively and economically. The word advertising is a Latin word which means to turn attention of people to a specific thing. It is a paid publicity. According to Oxford Dictionary, the word to advertise means to make generally or publicly known, describe publicly with a view to increasing sales. Advertising is thus a mass communication tool which is essentially in paid form by the firm or an individual, and the ultimate purpose of which it is give information, develop attitude and induce action which are useful to the advertiser. So, advertising presents and upholds the ideas, commodities and services of a recognized advertiser, which provides as a communication link between the producer and the potential buyers. It gives the information to the would-be buyer who are interested in seeking the information about the product and the manufacturer. Advertising may be taken as the most efficient means of reaching people with the product information. Advertising presents a mass persuasion apart from disseminating information to the prospective buyer about the product and the producer. While creating awareness and popularity, it seeks to persuade. It is a more effective and expensive and less expensive way of creating contacts. So, let's talk about the summary of the whole lecture. So, we have discussed today in this lecture about the advertising. Advertising is a tool of mass communication used for promoting a product or service. Most accepted definition of advertising is given by AMA, that is American Marketing Association, and according to American Marketing Association, advertising is the paid form of non-personal presentation and promotion of idea, goods and services by an identified sponsor. We also discussed about the benefits of advertising in this lecture. So, benefits such as there are number of benefits, and we talked about the reasons why we should advertise. So, we talked about advertisements are done to increase sale, to increase profit, for preparing ground for new product, for information about new product, for stimulating demand, maintaining demand, for facing competition, neutralizing competition, barring new entries, creating goodwill, enhancing goodwill and many other reasons which we have discussed in this lecture. We also discussed ATL and BTL, above the line and below the line. Above the line is any work done involving media where a commission is taken by the advertising agency, and below the line is the work done for a client where a standard charges replaces the commission. So, advertising is important to create customer interest, engaged in consistent use of advertising to help meet marketing objectives. Lastly, the concept of advertising. The word advertising is the Latin word which means to turn attention of the people to a specific thing. So, advertising has become an integral part of today's marketing scenario. Advertising may be taken as a most efficient means of reaching people with product information. So, the conclusion of this whole lecture is advertising consists of all the activities involved in presenting to an audience a non-personal, sponsor identified, paid for message about a product or organization. Advertising has become essential to promote sales, to introduce new product, to create good public for large scale of production, for educating people, etc. So, advertising is the integral part of everyday's life. Without advertising, modern society cannot survive. Advertising is useful to society as it encouraging people to purchase goods and services. It bridges the gap among people by communicating varied culture through advertising message. It contributes to bring about all-round development of the economy by increasing demand. It provides opportunity to people to improve their income. So word advertising cover all kind of publicity within the advertising industry. The word is used more specifically as one time of marketing communication. Every advertisement attempts to bridge a gap between the sender and the receiver. Critics hostile to advertising attempt to draw a line between informative and persuasive advertising, but in reality this line is impossible to draw. The core of advertising concerns mass consumer advertising in the major media, that is television, radio, newspaper, magazine, posters, cinema and internet. Advertising serves many roles, an important part of marketing communication. That is all that we have for you today. Hope you enjoyed the session. We will soon be back with another interesting episode of advertising. Till then, take care, good day and namaskar.